Welcome to the Deep Dive. This is where we sift through piles of articles, research, all the relevant stuff, and really try to pull out the key insights, the things you actually need to know to feel properly informed. Today, we're diving into something pretty fundamental, something that really shapes, well, almost everything in our lives. Relationships, they're complex, obviously, foundational for happiness, growth, all of that. But relationships can also have these hidden sides, right? Painful stuff, deception. We're zeroing in on cheating and hidden relationships today, infidelity. It fascinates people maybe because the impact is just so huge. Broken trust, emotional chaos, it raises big questions. So our mission for this deep dive is to really explore why relationships built on deceit, whether they start with an affair or are just kept secret, why they almost always run into massive problems and usually fail. We've got a lot of recent research articles, data to try and give you a clear evidence-based picture. It's about getting those solid facts, those nuggets that help you understand it better. Okay, let's unpack this.
Yeah, and what's fascinating here is, we often think of cheating as really black and white, simple transgression, clear right and wrong. But the actual dynamics underneath, they're incredibly nuanced, super emotional. Our sources help us lay it all out, the why they fail, the specific downsides, some really interesting gender comparisons, and the hard data that backs it all up. If we look at the big picture from the research, the main theme is clear. Things like trust, real communication, social support, they get seriously compromised. And that makes these relationships fundamentally unstable, almost shaky right from the start, like building on sand, really.
That instability. Yeah, you feel that instinctively, don't you?
Mm-hmm.
When you think about what makes any relationship strong trust, talking openly, having people around you who support it, those are the pillars. So it makes total sense that if they're damaged or just not there from the beginning, the whole thing is, well, precarious. Could fall apart any second.
Okay, so let's dig into that first big point then.
Yeah.
The flaws baked into cheating relationships, why they almost always seem to fail. We're talking about those connections that literally start with cheating or have it woven right in.
Exactly. And the biggest issue, the most corrosive one probably, is just the total lack of trust, or at least a severely damaged sense of it. Imagine trying to build, a house, not just on unsteady ground, but on ground that's actively reminding you it could give way any minute. That's kind of what it's like. Trust isn't just nice to have, it's the absolute bedrock. It gives you security, predictability, that feeling your partner has your back, that they're safe. When that's gone or shattered right away by cheating, everything else struggles. The relationship just exists in this state of constant fragility. Right. The foundation is just inherently weak.
Precisely. And the long-term effects are really deep, often inescapable. Our sources, like studies on relational trauma, show that even if the affair partner becomes the new main partner, there's almost always this little seed of doubt planted, that nagging question, okay, they cheated with me. Are they going to cheat on me? It just whispers in the back of your mind.
Always there.
Always. It's not just some irrational thought you can brush off. It's this deep-seated fear that can stick around forever, making it incredibly hard to ever feel fully secure, Like you could be replaced again. This constant hypervigilance really eats away at the safety you need for real intimacy.
And how does that actually show up day to day?
Well, you see constant suspicion, a late text, maybe they're home late from work, an unanswered call, suddenly your mind races, you start questioning everything and second-guessing. Questioning their motives, what they say, looking for hidden meanings. It creates this really guarded atmosphere. How can you be truly vulnerable, share your deepest fears, be your authentic self if there's always that underlying fear of betrayal or just the feeling they're not being completely straight with you?
You can't really.
No,
Yeah.
It fundamentally blocks the path to building a secure, peaceful future. Both people end up perpetually on edge, stuck in this cycle of anxiety and mistrust, like walking on eggshells all the time.
God, that sounds utterly exhausting. It's draining all the energy out of it. And it's not just the external trust, is it? There's also that internal battle, the guilt and shame, especially for the person who did the cheating. That guilt, particularly if families were involved or long partnerships ended, it can just eat away at the new bond they're trying to form, like acid slowly dissolving the connection.
Yeah, it's a powerful internal corrosive.
And here's where it gets really interesting, psychologically speaking. This shame, it's not just a feeling. Our sources show it has real behavioral consequences. The person feeling guilty might subconsciously push the new partner away, maybe start fights, avoid deep conversations, almost like self-sabotage. Perhaps because deep down, they feel they don't deserve this new happiness.
That makes sense. A sort of unconscious barrier.
Exactly. And it often leads to continued secrecy, even after the affair is supposedly over. hiding parts of the past, struggling to be fully open about feelings or what they're up to. It creates this breakdown in communication in the new relationship itself. The shame from the past stops them being authentic now. It's a vicious cycle.
So the past constantly poisons the present.
Precisely. So think about carrying that weight, that internal voice constantly saying you did wrong. How can you truly connect, feel real joy when you're fighting that script? Or terrified of being found out? It's like trying to dance with chains on. You just can't be fully present, fully vulnerable. The foundation is tainted from the start. It's an uphill battle.
And that internal struggle often gets reflected externally, doesn't it? Beyond the personal guilt and trust issues, these relationships often face immense pressure from, well, other people. Social judgment. Our sources are pretty consistent on this. Relationships that start from cheating, they're generally frowned upon. Friends, family, the wider circle, they often disapprove.
Yeah, you hear stories about that all the time.
And it's not just abstract disapproval. It has real consequences. It often leads to social isolation for the couple. You might see the original partner's friends taking sides, cutting ties. Even mutual friends or family might distance themselves or just make things really awkward.
Like holidays must be a nightmare.
Exactly. Holiday invites might dry up. Parties get uncomfortable. This lack of a supportive social network, which is so vital for any relationship to handle stress and feel validated, it really destabilizes things. Without that community cheering you on, or at least accepting you, the relationship can feel illegitimate, constantly under the microscope, and incredibly lonely.
So the outside pressure just adds another layer of difficulty.
Absolutely. It erodes the relationship from the outside in, makes it hard to find any sense of normalcy or acceptance. Imagine trying to celebrate an anniversary when half your friends aren't speaking to you because of how it started. That lack of validation, people to share joy with or lean on, it makes the couple feel totally alone. Just think how crucial social support is normally for advice, for comfort, for just feeling like you belong. When that's missing, the relationship is just fragile. It forces them into this isolated bubble, often making internal problems seem even bigger.
That makes chilling sense. We really are social animals, aren't we? Having our community's blessing, or at least acceptance, accounts for a lot. Okay, beyond social judgment, there's another big one. This mirage of unrealistic expectations. Affairs often happen in secret, right? It's exciting, charged. Our sources call it a fancy bubble, separate from boring old real-life bills, chores.
Right, the escape aspect.
Exactly. Stolen moments, high drama, illicit thrills. It feels intense. But then, the brutal contrast. When the affair becomes the main relationship, out in the open, reality bites. That excitement, the secrecy fuel, it's gone. Suddenly it's about who takes the bins out, managing finances, dealing with family stress, all the normal, unglamorous stuff that makes up a real partnership.
The adrenaline fades.
Totally. And the novelty wears off.
Yeah.
And that intense bond, forged in secret, suddenly has to deal with everyday life. And often, it just can't.
So what does this all mean then?
It means profound disillusionment, usually. The skills needed for a long-term thing, like solid communication, shared values, handling conflict well, mutual support, they weren't really built during the affair. The affair was built on escapism, excitement, maybe focusing only on the good bits. Take away the secrecy, throw in real-life challenges, and the whole thing can look pretty flimsy.
So the foundation wasn't just built on shaky ground, it was built for a different kind of structure altogether.
Exactly. The partners might realize, sadly, that what felt so real was mostly a fantasy. And that realization, that disappointment, often leads to the end. The dream just can't survive the reality.
That's a really critical distinction, the difference between that forbidden thrill and the resilience you need for the day-to-day grind. Which brings us neatly to the next bit. Let's talk about relationships that are just hidden. Maybe they didn't start with cheating, but they're kept secret. While the origin's different, that secrecy itself creates a lot of the same problems.
Right. The act of hiding it is damaging in itself.
Definitely. The emotional strain alone can be huge. Constant secrecy creates massive stress, anxiety, this persistent fear of being found out.
Like living a double life.
Exactly. Always being on guard, checking your stories, remembering who knows what. It's exhausting psychologically, like running this endless mental marathon of deception. You're just always drained, always on edge.
And that must kill intimacy, right? If you're always holding back such a huge part of your life.
It absolutely cripples it. How can you be truly vulnerable, deeply connected, when you can't share openly? How can you feel safe to be yourself if you're constantly crafting lies or half-truths?
You need transparency for real connection.
Precisely. Real intimacy means being fully seen, fully known. That's almost impossible when the relationship itself is a secret. It prevents that deep, authentic bond where both people feel totally safe.
And the daily toll, the mental energy spent on cover stories, avoiding slip-ups, it must make even simple moments feel stressful.
It really does. Genuine, relaxed connection becomes this rare, almost unattainable thing.
And that fear of exposure, coupled with the lack of support you mentioned earlier, that must be a double whammy.
Absolutely. Without being visible, openly acknowledged, you get none of that affirmation or help from friends and family. Hidden relationships miss out on those vital social safety nets. There's no one to celebrate the good times with openly, and crucially, no one trusted to turn to when things get tough disagreements, crises, sadness.
So you're completely on your own as a couple.
Pretty much. And that lack of external validation can really hit hard emotionally. Both partners might feel neglected, undervalued because their relationship can't be acknowledged. One person might feel like, a dirty secret, not worthy of being seen in public. This leads to isolation, loneliness, feeling unseen.
Yeah, I could see how that would feel terrible.
Just think how vital that social buffer is normally. Its absence makes the hidden relationship incredibly vulnerable, fragile, like that fortress with no reinforcements you mentioned, prone to collapsing inward.
And you talked about power imbalances, too. How does it play out in secret relationships?
Well, because it's hidden, often one person has more say over how hidden it is. They might dictate when and where you can be seen, who can know, how much time you spend together. It creates this inherent inequality.
So one person's kind of calling the shots on the secrecy level.
Exactly. And that dynamic, it's ripe for manipulation. The partner with more power might leverage the secrecy to avoid commitment, maintain other ties, or just exert control. It also breeds huge insecurity for the other person. They might feel like they're constantly waiting to be chosen fully, waiting for the relationship to be revealed, waiting for real commitment.
Living in limbo.
Totally. Perpetual limbo, always feeling on hold, never fully acknowledged, never a priority. That imbalance just erodes any sense of real partnership, mutual respect. It's deeply unsustainable.
That feeling of being on hold. Wow, that sounds incredibly painful.
Yeah.
And I guess that ties into the whole missed milestones thing, too.
Definitely. A direct consequence of the secrecy is missing out on all those public moments. Anniversaries you can't celebrate openly, family events you can't attend together, holidays spent apart or in secret.
These aren't just dates, are they? They're markers.
Exactly. They mark progress, shared joy, public validation. They show you're moving forward together as a recognized couple.
So missing them must build up resentment over time.
Hugely. That chronic inability to share happy moments openly, to introduce your partner at Christmas dinner, to have friends toast your anniversary, it leads to deep-seated resentment, emotional dissatisfaction. It's like building something beautiful but never being allowed to show anyone. Each missed chance to be a normal couple, to get that public affirmation, it chips away at the bond.
Especially for the person with less control.
Often, yes. They end up feeling undervalued, unfulfilled, and ultimately really resentful. It's this slow, quiet erosion that often proves fatal to the relationship, leaving scars long after.
Wow, okay. That accumulation of small hurts. Powerful stuff.
So we've covered a lot of the emotional, the psychological side of things, really painted a picture of the challenges. But now let's shift gears. Let's get into the numbers, the research-backed insights. Let's unpack the data. Who cheats, why, and what does the data say actually happens next?
Right, moving from the experiential to the quantitative. Let's start with the big one, gender. Who cheats more, men or women? Now, obviously, cheating happens across the board, all genders, all orientations. It's a human thing. But the data does show some interesting differences.
It does. And when we look at motivations, our sources, things like the General Social Survey, the Institute for Family Studies, APA research, they show pretty consistent patterns. Men, statistically speaking, seem more often motivated by physical or sexual gratification. Maybe seeking novelty and opportunity arises, looking for a different kind of sexual experience.
Okay. And women?
Women more frequently seem driven by emotional dissatisfaction, feeling neglected, unseen, unheard in their main relationship. They're often looking for that deeper connection they feel is missing.
So different drivers often.
Yeah, and that has big implications. An affair for physical reasons might be easier for some to compartmentalize, but an emotional affair, that often signals a much deeper crack in the main relationship. It can feel like a bigger betrayal, even if no physical line was crossed. It's about emotional abandonment.
And the actual rates, what do the numbers say in the U.S.?
Well, the studies show married men report higher rates, around 20 to 25% admitting infidelity at some point. For married women, it's lower, maybe 13 to 15%.
So a gap But still, significant numbers overall. It's not rare.
Not at all. It affects a substantial number of relationships, but what's really fascinating are the trends over time. This raises an important question.
Okay.
What's changing?
For men, the data actually shows a slight decline in infidelity rates recently. Could be many reasons: more awareness, changing norms, maybe more open communication in relationships.
Interesting. And for women?
For women, we're seeing the opposite, an increasing trend, especially among women aged, say, 30 to 50.
Wow, really? Why might that be?
Well, if we link it back to that emotional dissatisfaction motive, it could reflect changing expectations. Women might be less willing to tolerate emotional neglect now. Also, maybe greater financial independence gives more autonomy. And perhaps there's less stigma now around female sexuality or infidelity, so it's reported more openly. It definitely suggests a shift in relationship dynamics and expectations worth watching. That's a massive shift to consider. What about regret? Do men and women regret cheating differently?
The studies suggest they do, yeah. Men are statistically slightly less likely to report deep regret, or perhaps they regret different aspects. Women, on the other hand, are more likely to regret the emotional impact, the pain caused to their partner, the damage to the family, the toll it took on their own well-being.
So women focus more on the relational harm.
It seems that way, often. It aligns with the different motivations. Again, not true for everyone, but it's a pattern in the data. Understanding that difference in regret can be really important for couples trying to heal.
Okay, so we have the who and some why. Now, the really stark part. What happens to relationships that start with or involve cheating? What are the actual success rates according to the data?
This is where the numbers get pretty sobering. Sources like the Journal of Marriage and Family Therapy, Psychology Today, divorcestatistics.org, they all point to this. The success rate of relationships that actually start from an affair and become long-term, stable, happy unions, it's incredibly low, like only 3 to 5%.
Wait, only 3 to 5%? That's tiny.
It's almost negligible.
Yeah.
And it powerfully backs up everything we discussed earlier, the broken trust, the guilt, the unrealistic expectations, that initial flaw, that wound. It rarely heals properly. The foundation is just too compromised. Building something lasting and happy on that, the odds are overwhelmingly stacked against it. That 3-5% isn't just a statistic. It shows how tough, almost impossible that path is.
And for marriages specifically, if they started with cheating?
Even worse, unfortunately. The data suggests around 75 to 80% of marriages that began with cheating end in divorce or separation.
75 to 80% fail. Wow. That's a huge risk to take, trying to build a life on that foundation. It's not just a slight disadvantage, it's like a built-in fatal flaw.
It highlights the immense difficulty.
Yeah.
But there is a little glimmer of hope, or at least nuance, for people who have cheated and genuinely want to change.
Okay.
The research indicates about 60% of people who cheat don't cheat again. IF, and this is a big if, IF, they get caught, face consequences, and genuinely commit to recovery.
So there are conditions. It's not automatic.
Absolutely not. It requires proper, usually professional, counseling and sustained hard work from the person. It's about taking responsibility after being confronted with the reality and then doing the deep work therapy, honesty, rebuilding trust. It shows change is possible, but only with real agency, commitment, and facing the music.
Right. It's the work they do after being caught that matters.
Yeah.
Not just getting caught itself.
Right.
Okay, one last data point that often surprises people. Emotional versus physical affairs. Is one worse?
Well, the research says emotional affairs are just as likely to end the primary relationship as physical ones.
Really? As likely?
Yes. That idea that it's only emotional, so it's not as bad, the data refutes that. The betrayal of trust, diverting that intimate emotional energy away from your partner. It can be equally destructive.
Because it hits the core bond.
Exactly. Sharing deep secrets, vulnerability, emotional investment with someone else can feel just as damaging, sometimes more so than a physical act. It strikes at the heart of the unique connection.
So all forms of betrayal carry huge risks. That really changes the perspective. Okay, as we wrap this up, let's try and pull the main threads together. What are the key takeaways? Well, the big one seems clear. Relationships built on cheating or kept hidden face enormous challenges. Trust, communication, social support. These pillars are usually broken or missing from the start, making them incredibly fragile.
Right. Inherently unstable.
And we saw that while men used to cheat more statistically, often for physical reasons, that gap is narrowing. Women are cheating more, especially ages 30-50, often driven by emotional needs not being met.
Significant trend.
And the outlook for relationships born from deception. Pretty grim, according to the numbers. That 3-5% success rate, high divorce rate,
Uh-huh.
unresolved guilt, broken trust, pop fantasy bubbles, they rarely lead to lasting happiness.
Indeed. So what this deep dive really pushes us to think about, I think, is the incredible power of transparency, honesty, and vulnerability. Not just in romance, but in all our important connections.
Nice.
Well, if we understand why deceitful relationships fail because they lack trust, openness, support, then we get a much clearer picture of what makes any relationship strong and fulfilling.
It highlights the essentials by showing what happens when they're missing.
Exactly. It makes us ask, what do we truly value and prioritize in our own connections? Understanding why these relationships crumble helps us see what we need to build, cultivate, and protect in all our relationships. Romantic, family, friendships, so they don't just survive, but actually thrive.
So maybe the final thought for you listening is, how does the presence or absence of real trust, genuine openness, and that feeling of being supported by your community, how does that shape not just your partner relationship, but all your significant bonds?
Yeah, it's worth pondering, isn't it? The power of just being truthful and integrous as the foundation for lasting human connection. Something to reflect on as we all navigate the complexities of relationships, hopefully aiming for bonds built on solid ground.